Welcome to Haltech Elite NSP Training Part 71. In this training module, we're going to be exploring using dual 3-port boost control solenoids to control both the top and bottom port on our external wastegates for a further extended range of boost control. Without further wait, let's jump in so we can check this out.
Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at setting up both top and bottom port control on an external wastegate with dual boost control solenoids. This might be a situation you find yourself in if you've maxed out your wastegate spring with a 3-port boost controller and you want to have more boost. Now, a lot of people will switch over to either a 4-port boost controller or simply put in a larger wastegate spring. I find that you can get better control and better resolution using dual 3-port control. Now, what does that mean? We'll have a boost control solenoid that'll be working on our top port control, the traditional style that we went over and talked about in our open and closed loop tutorials. We'll add a second boost control solenoid, a second 3-port, that's going to control the side port of our wastegate. Now, let's go over some schematics so we can see how we can set and configure our boost control solenoids. It's actually relatively simple, but let's get the details out of the way. So if we're looking at our traditional top port control, we'll have our 3-port boost control solenoid, we'll have our wastegate. We also see in the schematic we have our turbocharger. Here we're going to find we have a port 1, 2, and 3 on our 3-port solenoid. Port 1 is going to be shared with the pressure reference from our compressor or boost pressure reference source. That's going to go to the port 1 location on the boost control solenoid, and it's also going to go to the side port of the wastegate. Then we'll find our port 3 that's going to be vent to atmosphere on our boost control solenoid, and our port 2 will go to the top port control on our wastegate. And this orientation, the solenoid is in the normally closed state. And what that means is if we don't energize and pulse the solenoid, no pressure will flow through port 1 into port 2 and going and pushing down on that wastegate valve and diaphragm assembly. So this is going to give us wastegate spring pressure if we don't have any output for the boost control. This is going to be the traditional way we control either open or closed loop control with our boost control routine. Now, when we start to energize the solenoid, we'll allow more pressure to pass through port 1 to port 2, and at a certain point, we're not able to flow any more pressure through port 2 to the top port of the wastegate, and we'll eventually hit the maximum boost we can achieve with just this single boost control solenoid and whatever spring combination we have in our wastegate. If you want to have more boost, we either have two options. One, switch over to a 4-port control that allows to have just a single solenoid controlling both top and bottom ports at the same time. I find that gives me too coarse of a control. It makes it extremely difficult to get boost control right. I recommend not to run a 4-port solenoid. Instead, we can introduce now a second 3-port on our side port control. And in this orientation here, we are going to set up our secondary boost control solenoid in the following manner. We'll find that we have our pressure reference. We find we have our side or bottom port reference on our wastegate. That's typically where we reference our manifold pressure. In this situation, we're going to be setting up our boost control solenoid so that we have, again, ports 1, 2, and 3. Port 1 will be vent to atmosphere. Port 2 will go to that side port or bottom port location on our wastegate. Port 3 will be our pressure source from our compressor cover or a boost pressure reference going into the solenoid. Now in this orientation, the boost control solenoid is in the normally open state. It means if we don't energize the solenoid, all of the pressure will go through port 3 into port 2 and go to the wastegate. So if we don't energize the boost control solenoid, we will operate and run at the wastegate spring level. That's exactly what we want. So what we're going to find is when we energize the boost control solenoid, 0 to 100% duty cycle, that will be allowing more air to be bypassed from port 2 out of port 1. If we start shutting down the pressure reference to that side or bottom port location on the wastegate, that will increase the boost pressure. So if we're running our dual 3-port control solenoids on our external wastegate, we have the ability to independently go in and add pressure on the top port and cut pressure reference off on the side port. The combination of both the top and the side, if we removed the side port pressure reference and we put as much pressure on the top port control, you'll get the maximum amount of boost that you could possibly build. Let's say you have a 6-pound wastegate spring, you might be able to achieve 40 to 50 pounds of boost. So you can extend your boost control range substantially with this secondary solenoid. Now, let's talk about how we can configure the secondary solenoid in our Haltech software here. And then we're going to talk about how we can tie this together with either the closed loop boost control routine, controlling that traditional top port, or working in a simplified open loop method of controlling our boost. Let's check this out. We're going to move from our boost control page right here, and we're going to go over into our main page. Here we're going to jump into our navigation tree, and we're going to jump down in generics. We're going to be setting up a generic output specifically for controlling our secondary.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.